Wow, I can't believe you guys lasted this long. First of all, thank you for staying this long, and anyone in the interwebs listening. And thank you to HydroDex and Astro and everyone else who put this event together. This is very exciting. My name is Gilad Goren. I am one of the co-founders and also the head of partnerships at Bitgreen. And we are a project that will soon be a parachain, proud members of the .Kusama universe. And as you all well know, in an ecosystem where every parachain is meant to have its purpose, our purpose is, well, its purpose. We seek to be the hub for impact and sustainability for the entire .Kusama universe, and in turn help Polkadot be the center of gravity for impact in the entire world of Web3. We firmly believe that this is a revolutionary technology that could scale the impact and really get us to a place and a world that in our hearts we know is possible. So a bit of backdrop. I'm not going to go into all these because they're pretty depressing, but we have a set of intercorrelated challenges. Let's call it challenges. It's a nice euphemism that we all collectively face, right? Migration, scarcity of food, the big C word, climate change. And they're pretty daunting. However, if you just flip the script, these are actually our bags, our big, hairy, audacious goals. They represent an opportunity that has pretty much a limitless TAM, or a total addressable market. The opportunity is massive. It's in the trillions, and it's for us to take. And our moon mission is to stop this. It's a pretty sad picture. So what's carbon got to do with it? And that's kind of the point of this conversation that we're having. Well, I am not a scientist, so I'm not going to be able to drop a lot of knowledge on proving that climate change is a man-made situation. There are far more better suited people who would do this in a heartbeat. But I'll just give a little context. It turns out that there's almost an exact correlation between the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that have been emitted since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, so early 19th century, beginning, or late 18th century, and the rise in temperatures. As you can see, there's been a cycle for millennia, and then suddenly, boom, hockey stick, and not the kind of hockey stick we want to see. It's not mass adoption, this is rising temperatures. So, what does that mean? Well, a rise in temperatures, aka global warming, leads to a destabilization of the ecosystems that govern the way we all live. And by all of us, I mean like all species, all living essences. In other words, global warming leads to climate change. And frankly, the way we are thinking about it, it's kind of all wrong. Because, first of all, climate change is not just a problem in silo. Those challenges I showed before, they're all interconnected. Climate change exacerbates tensions between peoples over less and less water and less harvest, which leads to wars. We've already had water wars in the world. Climate change disproportionately affects people of color and women. Kids who normally go to school are forced to go to work. Overexploitation of habitats, all those evil things. So they're all interconnected. And we're talking about reducing, right? Mitigating. Let's drive less. Let's do less industrialization. Unfortunately, we're past that point. We actually actively need to take carbon from the atmosphere. And that is carbon removal, that is expensive, that is necessary. It's also in the gigatons, like billions of tons. And I've been to a few different conferences focusing on this space, and unfortunately, people are often talking about millions of tons, right? There are currently a couple dozen millions of tons in the Web3 world, tokenized carbon credits. A lot of projects out there, and we'll talk about one of them, reaches eventually millions of tons of credits. We need gigatons. It's, frankly, maybe paralyzing to some people. That number of 50 trillion, that's what researchers say is the amount of money we need to basically pay to stop it. In other words, this is the funding gap. And some actually say that it's twice the amount post-COVID. That is a paralyzing number, right? That's much bigger than, I'm not even sure that's the market cap anymore for crypto and DeFi, but it's much bigger than this. It's going to be weird for you guys to hear this. I actually think that's exhilarating. And I know it's weird, but the reason I think this is exhilarating is because we have a North Star. We have a target. We need to hit 50 trillion to fill in this funding gap. And what's comforting is that the world has more than enough of that money available. Recently, I was listening to a podcast from The Economist, and they're talking about how there's $35 trillion already being screened among asset managers for ESG. You hear about trillions of dollars that are just waiting to be invested. So there is clearly enough supply of capital. And there's also enough incredible projects and initiatives and talent to present the demand for capital. So there's enough of both sides. So what's the challenge? They don't meet one another. The rails connecting between demand and supply for capital just aren't there. They're not proper. There isn't an efficient way to discover opportunities and invest in them. And that's where Bitgreen steps in. So basically, Bitgreen is a parachain on top of which are being built initiatives, projects, and different opportunities to connect between the demand for capital, i.e. the projects that do the carbon sequestration, that deal with social impact, those kind of projects, and the supply capital, investors. And investors could be massive institutions. It could be individuals like you and I. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. And of those $50 to $100 trillion, Bitgreen is dedicated to having one of those trillions be moved through our rails and through Polkadot. So I'm going to be focusing mostly on that first one, commodity markets, carbon. However, just to give you guys a primer of our overall 101. So I mentioned we're building the parachain, on top of which there's going to be some really interesting tokenomics models that are focused, kind of built around carbon. I won't get into the details of that, but stay tuned. We'll be making announcements about that. And in order to actually seed the ecosystem, to get projects to build on us, and we also have a surprise announcement about that coming up in a bit, we are actually building our own applications as well. So layer 1 to layer 3. The first application is a compliant crowdfunding marketplace for impact investing with a focus on debt. Debt is a $400 trillion industry. And in the world of impact investing, the majority is done in debt. So what does debt actually mean? It means being able to fund a hydropower plant or solar array. It means being able to give more comfortable terms to companies that are doing an incredible job in microfinance or other forms of triple bottom line initiatives, but are looking for more mission-aligned money. They don't want to sell their soul to hedge funds. They want to work with individuals who are looking for a return. Triple bottom line, by the way, is a return in terms of your money, but also social impact and environmental sustainability. So the current sector of impact investing is about $1 trillion. Nice, but again, we have a $50 trillion funding gap. With this marketplace and other initiatives we'll build around it, our goal is to democratize it, allow anyone to be able to invest with their hearts. So an individual like you or I, to other entities, the people that don't usually get access to this. Imagine getting yields on real-world assets with a real-world impact. The second application is in the world of ecosystem service credits. That's your carbon credits, your biodiversity credits, plastic credits. I'll get into the details later on in the conversation. Just suffice to say, again, marketplace mechanism. We think that's a very strong way of transferring cash or fiat or stablecoins from those that have the cash or fiat or stablecoins to those that need it. And we are going to be building a marketplace, which we'll be launching soon, that allows for the developers, the suppliers, the people who are doing the work, to easily tell their story. They'll tell the story through videos and text. They'll tell their story through showing you the plots of the land, and in real time you'll be able to see the land. And for individuals or any entities to purchase and support them. The last bit is philanthropy, also a massive and important part of the impact space. Fairly early for us, I won't bore you with the details yet. That's more of a 2023 thing. All right, carbon. Carbon credits. Interesting. Does anyone know what carbon credits are? Show of hands. Anyone ever heard of the term carbon credits before? Okay. It's kind of a finicky term because it's not exactly a commodity, right? You can't fuel your car with carbon credits or feed your family. It's not a security. It's not meant to be a security, at least, right? You don't buy it to hold and then earn money on it. You're meant to retire it, though some people do buy it to hold and earn money on it. And it's not necessarily philanthropy, though it is a transfer of wealth from those that have to those that need, because it's somewhat compliant. There are areas where you have to buy carbon credits to a certain extent. Carbon credits were originally created as part of a larger economic mechanism to try to decarbonize the world. In other words, there was meant to be a global mandate where all entities, companies, countries basically have a cap of emissions per year or per a certain period of time. Once they pass the cap, they pay a tax. So the stick here is these carbon credits. They would pay to offset the emissions that they create. The money for the credits would go to projects who do the hard work of sequestering carbon, of protecting forests. Essentially, it kind of equals out that way. However, what ended up happening is the mandate never happened. And so we have a bit of a broken archipelago. We have some areas that have a compliant marketplace. This is like in Europe, California, and some big numbers, and it works quite well. And then we have the voluntary carbon marketplace. This is where companies or entities essentially volunteer to offset their credit, whether they do it for truly altruistic purposes or to look good in front of customers. It's where the Amazons, the Microsofts, the Shopifys really shine. And it's a nascent but very much a growing industry. But ultimately, the purpose of these credits is to do just that. The idea is it's basically to incentivize you to decarbonize, because the value of the credits will go up. You get basically another push to think about what you're doing, maybe travel less, maybe update your technology, et cetera, et cetera. So what's the problem? Well, I mentioned the fact that we're probably never going to have a global mandate. That's sort of, at this point, the story, or the worth for science fiction. But aside from that, carbon is a sector that is really slow. It's low tech. It's a marketplace that's opaque. There isn't really price transparency. A lot of the deals being done between the producers and the buyers is sort of through brokers. So a lot of the money goes to middlemen. You could have one deal for this project with one broker, and it will cost you X, and then another broker will give you X plus Y. Not the right setting to build a trustful and efficient marketplace. So, interesting. Don't you love it when the slides get mixed up anyway? What is Bitgreen's solution? Our work certainly is basically couched in 3 pillars when it comes to carbon. The first pillar is the marketplace that I mentioned. It's combining the best of Web 2 in terms of e-commerce, the ability to really have a user experience that people get. Like I said, it's the opportunity for a project developer to tell their story. Now, a carbon credit isn't just about sequestering carbon. It's also about direct benefits to biodiversity. It's growing the species, the amount and the diversity of species. It could be about supporting frontline indigenous communities. So this is an opportunity to tell the story. It's also an opportunity to use the best that Web3 offers, which is a transparent audit trail. So you can see how the project develops in real time. You feel more comfortable that it isn't a bunch of BS. And also, it's an opportunity to really see price transparency. In our marketplace, unlike amongst brokers, the prices are out there in the open. There's a historic, and there's projections as well. And on top of it, you know how much we're going to take. There's going to be a uniform fee that is irrespective of the type of project or the specific project itself. It's out in the open, and it's basically a network fee, the funds of which will go back to the network itself, and also for a little buffer for security. And that will be in full detail in front of everyone as this launches. Aside from the marketplace for the sales and distribution, one of the main pain points that developers have is, God, it's really expensive to originate a project. If you're building a meaningful project, and what I mean by meaningful is like in terms of size and impact, it will take you years, and it will cost millions of dollars. Often, those on the front lines don't have either. What Bitgreen is able to do is through innovative financial tools, like green bonds, the debt marketplace, and this concept known as forward contracts, which is essentially the ability to buy future credits at a discount. We're able to enable the project developers to kind of exit part of their money that was invested much earlier on, so they could then recycle it into new projects, thereby scaling the supply. Cool. What's happening right now is that there's growing demand for credits. There's not enough supply. Partially because of the low-tech nature of the sector, but partially because there's not that money that supposedly stands there, that wall of money, as some people call it, is not reaching the guys who are on the ground. And the third piece of the puzzle is what's called DMRV. DMRV stands for Digital Monitoring, Reporting, Verification. That's the brass tacks of actually creating the credit, measuring the baseline. So where are we right now? And what are the plans for improving or for maintaining, right? Doing the verification, making sure that what's happening is actually real, sending the applications, all that good stuff. Currently, it's done through Excel spreadsheets, boots on the ground, PDFs, 600-page PDFs that you can't really index and start looking through. With DMRV, we're talking about use of satellites and AI. We're talking about remote sensing with IoT, with drones, all the kind of fourth industrial technological innovation that we know is obvious and should be there. I'm glad to say that the industry is coming around to it. And the role that Web3 could play here is to be the connective tissue, connecting between all the inputs from machines and humans in a very transparent audit trail in order to give that layer of transparency, so that investors would come in, look at it, be like, okay, this is legit, and I could keep track. Okay, I'm more comfortable to invest at the early stage of a project, or just generally to have it for posterity's sake. By the way, one thing that I forgot to mention, when we spoke earlier about global warming and climate change, I mentioned I'm not a scientist, clearly. I'm walking on a stage barefoot talking about crypto. But I think all of us are viscerally aware of the impact of climate change, right? We've all heard stories from all 7 continents. That's nice. I come from a country, currently, I just traveled from a country I recently moved to, that is experiencing unprecedented fires and the hottest summers they can ever imagine, and they're not suited for it. They don't have any air conditioners and all that. I grew up in a country that is suffering from incredible racial tensions and fires, and has about 40 harvests left. And this used to be the breadbasket, one of the breadbaskets of the world. I was born in a country that has endemic, semi-warring states, but is increasingly feeling the pressure of regional migration from other countries who, frankly, just don't have water. You may be able to guess what countries I'm talking about, or you're probably plugging in where you're from, or the stories you've heard, because those are not novel stories. We all are feeling it. So that sense of urgency that you may be feeling in your bones, or it's already made it up over here, that's what we're trying to work on, and that's what we would love your help with. Okay, so let's get real. I'm going to move beyond just theory and blah, 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 and talk about a real use case. So in the Ucayali region of Peru, which is in the Amazon, it's on the eastern part, there is a tract of about 2.5 million hectares of pristine Amazonian rainforest. For context, that's about Paris times 238. It's that big. That land has been stewarded by an indigenous community for generations. Now, aside from being stewards of a part of our Earth's lungs, they are also keepers of just an incredible treasure trove of Amazonian spirituality, plant medicine. It's a name that's well known in those circles. However, their work is, in this present system, an externality that's not accounted for. They're not rewarded for it. In fact, many of them live far below the poverty line, and as we speak, are constantly under threat, both them and the ecosystem that they are protecting, by illegal loggers, palm oil companies with abhorrent human rights records, narco-traffickers, and that's on a daily basis. So enter a concept called RED+. RED+ stands for Reducing Emissions from Avoided Deforestation and Degradation. And plus is on account of the co-benefits that I mentioned. It is a mechanism that was created under the auspices of the UN, and it allows for these sort of communities to be rewarded for their work, ongoing work. We were fortunate enough to have a representative of this indigenous community reach out to us for our help. And so what does Bitgreen do in this case, right? After all, we are a Web3 company. So it starts by connecting the dots between the community and mission-aligned project developers who understand the, unfortunately, novel, but pretty incredible concept of an indigenous-led RED+ project. I know it sounds like it should be happening all the time. It just doesn't. A lot of the projects end up paying the communities on the front lines pittances compared to a project like this, which will be a $1 billion+ project. And with this type of project, they're going to be earning the majority of the funds, which they deserve. Okay, so what else are we doing? Aside from making the connections and helping originate the project itself, it is going to be on our chain where that audit trail that I mentioned is going to be happening. From the raw inputs to the original documentations all the way through, you will have a clear and transparent record of how the project is taking shape. Funding, right? The forward contract is happening. Debt is going to be in use as well. We are facilitating the ability for any one of you, if you guys want, to get involved in this project. And then once those credits are issued, which will take 2 to 3 years, because that's how long it presently takes, those credits will be available to the masses on our marketplace. So that's just a very small example of a pilot project that we also think is our flagship project, or one of them, because we're just super stoked about it. And we have a bunch of other projects of this kind already coming up. So that's real-world impact done by a Web3 company. Okay, so what else? Well, I did mention that we believe that Polkadot is uniquely suited to be an impact hub for all of Web3. One of the ways we're going to do it is by bringing other projects around the Web3 world to build on DOT. Some of you may have heard of this firm, this project called Flow Carbon. Recently, we're in the news a lot. They're well capitalized, and they're doing incredible work of tokenizing carbon credits. They will be partnering with us, bringing their credits, putting it in our marketplace, making it available for the world, and also using our debt marketplace to raise additional capital for these projects, and a slew of other strategic partnerships. They're the first of many that are going to come on DOT. Getting to DOT. We're here to make DOT the epicenter of decentralized sustainability. Some of you may have been in Berlin, or New York, or Shanghai, or Buenos Aires for Decoded. My co-founder and the CEO, Adam, made the announcement with our friends at Sequester, a public good parachain, that we will put together an initiative backed by the Web3 Foundation to enable the entire .sama universe to automatically, through basically a module that collects a portion of transaction fees, offset their presence, and invest in impact projects. And this is my opportunity to shout out these amazing teams who already signed up, my opportunity to invite everyone else to join us, because this is truly an ecosystem-wide opportunity to make a statement. This will allow us to be climate positive and get us set up for the other initiatives that are possible. Because this is our project, our mission, and we think you guys should join us, and we could co-own this. So if you are excited and you have an idea, you're a project, you're a fellow parachain, you're anyone who wants to build, reach out to me, please. If you don't have an idea, I got you. Here's a whole list of ideas that we could build together on DOT, some of which we're actually already building, many of which we just want to see happen. And we will help you do this if this is what you want to do. There's a world of opportunities here. It really is. And we're here to actualize on the potential that this technology and this community has for our impact at scale. So with this, I'll say thank you to everyone in the room, everyone in the interwebs, and the teams who put this together. And yeah, catch me outside. Thank you.